Hey everyone, if you like martial arts and combat sports, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to the Drewsperience, available on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and other audio platforms if you want to get good conversations of martial arts, mixed martial arts, and 20% everything else. And with that, this is the Drewsperience, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. First, I'd like to say thank you to some of my show's supporters, KRT Tips and Tricks with Senseis Wesley Jensen and Darren Stringer, largest online growing dojo of Kyokushin karate and other martial arts during the pandemic. Also, Kyokushin Shuffle podcast of Sensei Patrick Pinto and his book Forever the Student ebook, picking the greatest minds of karate and martial arts in general, of how they excel at their art. And lastly, if you're an up and coming fighter and you want a good management company, Moments Management is the company I would recommend. Where Nima Safapour and his team, who represents Alexander Gustafsson, Gegard Mousasi, amongst other big names, teaches you how to invest and save your money before, during, and after your fight career. Moments Management, where quality and care come first. Today, my guest is a real special one, and I have to owe Sandro Ferrante, OG of the show, a huge thank you for helping make this happen. The guest I have on today is a pioneer as well in Canadian MMA. And if you really want to understand how Canadian MMA succeeded, we can look at some of the names we know today, but this man is such an integral part because he was there as well when the Wild West was just about to end. I am honored to be joined today by Canadian mixed martial arts pioneer, Denis Kang. Welcome to the Drewsperience, Denis.
What up, man? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's an honor to have you, considering how many, there's so many people say so many stories about you, but other than Sandro, your mentor, Andre Benke, had one story about you when you fought in Japan, and of how crazy you were. So he's got stories galore. And Andre he's got that man's. You ask for a story, he'll tell you every.
Andre Benke was, man. That guy at that point of America. The American top team has had many phases, and I was very fortunate to be part of the phase when he was there. And I mean, the guy really made the team at the time. He was more than just a coach. He was also a mentor, a leader, a friend, and we were very lucky to have him with us at that time. He was definitely a very important part of our success at that time.
He's really done such a good job with what he's done at American Top Team, and then he went over to the Black Zillions, and now it's Stanford MMA. But now he's kind of doing his own thing, and I'm really happy to see that he's really going for it, considering all he's done with mixed martial arts.
Right.
So Denis, before you were a fighter, you have a really interesting background because. Yes, you're Canadian, but you were kind of born outside of Canada. So
I was born outside of Canada, but I was born in Canada. It's a small French island that's located in Canada, but it belongs to France. It would be like thinking of Hawaii. Hawaii's super far in the Pacific, but it belongs to the U.S., right? Except this small island called St. Pierre and Miquelon, shout out to my hometown, is located just 27 kilometers south of Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. And that's it. I have a French passport and a Canadian passport. Very proud of both of them. And that's where I spent my formative years until 9, you could say. And then we moved to Spain. I bet you didn't know that. We moved to the Canary Islands. Yeah.
No, I never knew that.
We lived in Las Palmas of the Canary Islands, which is an archipelago of islands off the coast of Morocco, and it belongs to Spain. We lived there for a year, and then we moved to Vancouver when I was around 11, and that was in around 88. And I'm dating myself. Yes, I'm old, but hey.
What were your parents doing? Was your dad in the French army?
No. My mother was a teacher. My father was in the import-export business and was just looking for better opportunities. Some of his family he comes from a big family, and some of his family had already some of his family was in Las Palmas and some of him was in Vancouver, and it turned out that the better opportunities lied in Vancouver, so we ended up settling there.
That's awesome. And you were into North Vancouver. So here's the thing, because
That's right.
I work in, so my day job is I work in telecom, and one of the companies I work for,
I used to work in telco for like a
Really?
small bit. I hated it. Oh my God. I used to pop ceiling ties and run cables through to set up Wi-Fi antennas. Fuck.
That's crazy.
Worst job. It was a period of my life where I thought that I was burnt out with MMA, and I felt that I needed to do a regular job, and it was a big mistake. And that's it. Whatever. Anyways.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So when you went to North Vancouver, so where I work, it's like Vancouver. A lot of my work's clients are in Alberta, Vancouver, BC. But you went to North Vancouver. What is the difference exactly? Because I know Vancouver is like the main city, and then sometimes when I would speak with people, they'd say, "Oh, I'm from North Vancouver." Is there somewhat of a difference between the two?
No, it's still Vancouver. There's a body of water that separates it, but there's like a 15-minute ferry ride that you can take, and there's 2 bridges. It'd be like comparing Staten Island to New York, maybe. It's still Vancouver, absolutely Vancouver. It's very close to downtown Vancouver. In fact, people move here because it's so close to downtown Vancouver, right? Yeah.
Well, what was it like?
And it's also really close to the mountains and the nature. Yeah.
That's why a lot of people come out to Vancouver, like British Columbia in general. And what was it like living in Vancouver? Because you were born in St. Pierre, Milliken, then you went to the Canary Islands, and then you moved to Vancouver.
I'm sorry, I got to correct you. St. Pierre and Miquelon.
Miquelon. Okay, so St. Pierre and Miquelon.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
There might be some of my hometowners watching this.
To all the people from St. Pierre, Milliken, I am really sorry.
Miquelon.
If I mispronounce it, it's the English accent I have.
It's all good, bro. Yeah. It's all good. You know what? I bet you they couldn't pronounce the name of your show either. So it's all good.
For sure. And what was it like living in Vancouver back when you were 9 years old? Because here's the funny thing. That period was right when the martial arts starts really becoming mainstream, with like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren. What was it like in that era?
I tell you, I always loved martial arts. Since I was in St. Pierre and Miquelon, since I was 6-7 years old, I always loved Bruce Lee, loved martial arts. The first martial arts I did was judo when I was 9 years old in St. Pierre and Miquelon, because it's French, and France has a very strong judo program. So the first martial art I did was judo. In fact, you could say the very first team sport and like collective sport that I did was judo, and I loved it. And then we moved away when I was 9. In the Canary Islands, I did taekwondo. That was a lot of fun. So I was always into some kind of martial art. When we moved to North Vancouver, it was great. It was the big city. We never lived in a big city before that. Remember, St. Pierre and Miquelon has about 5,000 or 6,000 people, right? Las Palmas was bigger, but Vancouver was the big city for us. So I did a little bit of wrestling in high school. I played rugby, and then, I was always an athlete. I always excelled in sports, and I always knew it. I always knew that I was good. I always knew that I had this innate talent for sport, but I didn't like working hard. And when the wrestling practice or rugby practice, wrestling practice especially, would get really hard, I wouldn't like it. And I stopped it. And really, I stopped coming, and I would see my coaches, and they'd be like, "Dennis, how come you missed practice?" "Oh, just, and then they're like, "Okay, yeah, he quit." And I always felt bad for having quit those sports in my youth, in my teenagehood, because I knew that I was good at them, And so when I saw UFC, I was like, whoa, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I rented the videotape because that's what it was at the time. I brought it home. My brothers and I have 2 younger brothers. We all watched it. We gathered around the TV. We were mesmerized. We loved it. We loved it. And I kept renting them. I kept watching them. I started getting in touch with people who did a bit more martial arts. And then soon I started to train martial arts. But there was no grappling or BJJ back then. The closest thing was a Hapkido school because they did grappling. So I joined that. And I had no intentions of fighting really because I was what, 18, working at Walmart, literally. And if you remember in those days, UFC, up to UFC 7 or 8, it was all, everybody was an old guy, like over 30 martial art master or former champion or whatever. There was no, the first young guys were Jerry Bolander and Vitor Belfort, if you look back. They were 21 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Jerry
true.
Bolander was 21 and Vitor was 19. He was my age. That's why he was my favorite fighter. And then I started training Hapkido. It was good. The coaches were awesome. But then I heard of a Brazilian guy coming to town named Marcos Soares. And that's who I joined with. And that's who, supported me throughout my entire career and who I'm still a black belt under and proudly represent now.
That's amazing. So when you watched Vitor Belfort in 1997, it's so funny because Vitor, if you think of it, when him and John Jones fought, now we're fast forwarding to 15 years later. Yeah. I always like to say like that UFC 152 card, if you really are a martial arts connoisseur, that was a very important card for UFC because Vitor in his day was like kind of the John Jones coming up. No one could stop him. He had the 2 style of martial arts. So what was it like to watch it? Like when this happened in 1997?
But the thing is, people don't even know because I speak to some of these kids and they don't even know these older fighters. I'm like, did you know that Vitor beat a guy with only 1 pec named Trey Tellingman? They're like, who? They don't know. A lot of these new young guys, new young fans, I should say, don't know the history.
It's sad.
It's sad, but it is what it is. I mean, I'd rather have fans that don't know the history than, it is what it is. That's what it's gonna be,
But Trey Tellingman was a Lionheart guy too, and like that era too.
He was Lions Den, yeah.
Lions Den,
that's tough, man. You know what? There was very little training in Vancouver. And I had so many dreams of running away to San Diego or California. They were in Torrance and doing the tryouts to join the Lions Den and living and training and breathing training with them. That was my dream. That's all I wanted to do. Oh my God. You don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it, to be honest. I wanted to do it so bad. I loved MMA. I loved the sport. I loved everything about it. It was absolutely everything that I wanted to do.
That's amazing. So when you quit Walmart, like what made you like hand in like your resignation paper and you were like, I'm going for it?
That was something else. I got fired. We won't get into that.
Don't worry, we won't.
Yeah, and then so I started. Then I got a job, like just jobbing in an office, like inbound call center. So I would get up at 6 a.m., go to work, take the bus to work. Work all day 9 to 5, then take the bus and metro or subway, the train from 7:30 till about 8 or 9, then get home by 10:30, 11, go to sleep, do the same thing the next day. Every single day when I was from around 19 till about 22, 23, right? And then when I was 22, I quit my job and I moved to Brazil. And I didn't move to Brazil. I went to Brazil for 2 months. Almost 3 months. And I trained at the Carlson Gracie Academy with Carlson, with Paulo Filho, a lot of famous guys then. This was when the split had just happened. So Vitor wasn't there, right? The Carlson Gracie Academy was the main reps were Paulo Filho and this, Jucão, Jucão? Juan Jucão Carneiro. He's the coach of Douglas Lima and Diego Lima. Yeah.
Okay.
He was there back then. And it was amazing. It was an eye-opening experience. I was a young purple belt, 22 years old, wide-eyed and full of piss and vinegar. It was great. I trained and I came back started becoming a bouncer, and I took some fights. I took a fight. Do you remember a fighter named John Alessio?
Why do I remember? Well,
he fought Pat Miletich in UFC. He was pretty good. He was from Victoria, from BC.
Oh.
Yeah. So him and I fought in this event called the Boss Rutan Invitational, which was an event in a place called Littleton, Colorado. We had to pay our airfare. We had to pay our food. We had to pay our hotel. We had to pay entry into the tournament. It was a no-limit tournament in Littleton, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, which is exactly where the Columbine massacre happened the weekend before.
That's crazy. So what was it like to go into Denver there? Like, what was the environment like?
Well, the whole town was in mourning. I mean, we weren't really paying attention to it. We were there to fight. So the whole town was in mourning. There were signs everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then we fought. I won my first fight, and then I lost my second fight. Pat Smith was there. He fought. He got knocked out by Moti Hornstein. Jens Pulver was there. He made it second in the tournament. It was a tournament. Yeah. I won remember, Denver's a mile above sea level, so the altitude's real thin. So I got real tired, real fast. Yeah. And it was an eye-opening experience. And John Peretti, do you remember John Peretti?
John Peretti.
He was the matchmaker for UFC before Zuffa bought UFC.
SEG era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So John Peretti was the referee. So I went and asked him, I go, hey, how do I get more fights? I want to fight some more. And he gave me the phone number for this lady her name was Phyllis Lee. A lot of old timers will remember her because she was an old time pro wrestler. She was really old. She was like in her 70s. She used to manage Dan Severn. She managed Nate Marquardt, and she was the booker for Pancrase in Japan. If you wanted to fight in Japan, you had to go through a booker, like basically an independent agent that would take a percentage of your purse. So she was the funnel to get to Japan. So I got a fight in Japan. I got an invite. She called me up. Hey, kiddo, you want to fight in Japan? You got to fight this guy named Minoru Suzuki. I'm like, Minoru Suzuki? The Minoru Suzuki? The guy who beat Ken Shamrock? Beat Boss Rutan? The founder of Pancrase? Yep. Okay. So I went over there, 22 years old. Nate Marquardt was there. Shoney Carter was there. What's his name? Chris. What's his name? The guy who's a firefighter now. He's retired from UFC. Chris.
Shawnee Carter. Shawnee Carter. That you said.
Chris. Oh my God.
Lytle?
He's from Iowa or Indiana.
Chris Lytle?
Yes, Chris Lytle. Chris Lytle was there. Joe the Ghetto Man Charles was there. Brian Gassaway was there. I don't know if you know those names, but those are the names of the early 2000s and the late 90s of the MMA. And we all fought, and I won my fight. And this guy was the big deal in Japan. They brought me in to lose. Here I am, a 22-year-old skinny kid, like wide-eyed and just not knowing anything, and I'm fighting this pro. This guy's got 50 fights, and I dropped him. I stopped him by punches. The fight is on YouTube. I'm in these little red Speedos. It was incredible, like one of the most incredible experiences I've ever lived. First of all, just the simple fact that I'm in Japan. I'm with my coach, and I'm like, Marcus, we're in Japan. Can you believe it? We're in Japan. Like, it was so cool, man. And then to have won, of course. So it was for Pancrase. Of course, I beat one of their biggest stars. They weren't too happy. So they brought me in to fight their younger, tougher guys later. And I lost 2 fights in a row then because I wasn't ready. My training, you got to remember, in those days, so this is 2000, 2001, MMA training was not what it's like today. People didn't really know what to do. People would just wing it. They would train a bit of boxing here, train some jiu-jitsu, train wrestling, but nobody sparred MMA, nobody mixed, nobody did conditioning, It was a little different. So young fighters are ready now. They have a ready-made blueprint to draw from, and so that they can train and become fighters. Back then, nobody knew how to, You know, everybody just kind of made it up as they went along. And it was more based on raw toughness. And that's it, man. Heart and skill, you know.
That's crazy. And what's funny is when you did that tournament in 2000, that was just when SCG was in the process of selling their stake in the UFC for $2 million to Zuffa. And
is that when it happened?
Yeah. Well, it was in the late 2000s. Like the process is when
I think
it was
happening. Around I think it was a little later. I think it was more like 2003, 2004 that it happened.
Okay, so Zuffa bought the UFC in 2001. That's when they officially became
the owner. Oh, is that when it happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was like in that phase because like SEG was like bleeding money. They kept trying to go into these unsanctioned cities, you know, in the States because, you know, the government was after them. And you can never overrun the government. They're always going to find a way to get you. So when Zuffa came in, like, you know, when you were like, this is when you're now 23, about to be 24. What was like what was the new millennium like for MMA when it began? Like, what was the thought going in? Did people still think like?
First of all, the word MMA was very new. It was still called NHB, right? So not that many people called it MMA. MMA, mixed martial arts, was very new. I remember in 2001, I went down to San Luis Obispo, California. I went down to train with Chuck Liddell. I stayed at his house, and I was trained. Back then, he was his roommates were Jason Von Flew, Dan McGee, and Cruz Gomez, and it was Tony. What's the guy? The Peruvian fighter, Tony something. Tony Lopez? No, I forgot his name. Anyways, he was really good. Anyways, and yeah, we were talking about like, now everybody's calling it mixed martial arts. We were kind of making fun of it, that it was kind of like a big nerdy word, but then it just became MMA, you know. But before that, it was just NHB, man.
What was that like? Yeah, it's crazy. No holds bar, like, you know, and just to see, because when we first met, you were also telling me that you met your now good friend, Tim Kennedy. So just to see like what Chuck Liddell,
Tim Kennedy was there back then. Yeah.
What was that like? Because this was like, so this is 2001 now. So Chuck Liddell, so this is basically Tito Ortiz is the champion, but this is when
Chuck was training. Chuck was getting ready to fight Murilo Bustamante.
Yeah, at the 9/11 show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or Vitor. One of the two. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah. I actually remember this because I have the UFC visual history book from Eyewitness. So whenever you come to Montreal, you have to sign that book because my goal is to get as many legends to sign it. So anyways, yeah, so the UFC 33, this is what happened. It was supposed to be Tito versus Vitor. Vitor broke his hand, so they brought in Vladimir Yushchenko.
Oh, that's right. He cut his hand in the window. I remember that. Remember? That
window?
Was the thing.
I just knew he cut his hand. What was the story behind?
No. He was training in a ring that had a window behind the rope, and his hand went through the window. I remember. Yeah.
Oh,
this was on ADCC News. You didn't read ADCC News back then?
Abu Dhabi. What was ADCC? Abu Dhabi
Combat Challenge.
Never.
Did you not follow MMA back then?
I was 9 years old. I didn't know what it was. I was a kid. I'm a young man.
So back then, if you wanted to get your news about MMA, there was basically the main sites were Sherdog, ADCC News, and the Underground Forum, which was called submissionfighting.com, which then was changed to mixedmartialarts.com, which then got changed to MMA.tv, which blah, blah, blah. Shout out to the OG. Anyways.
Wasn't there also Full Contact Fighter, Joel Gold?
There was Full Contact Fighter. Yeah. I was subscribed to it. I would receive it. That was awesome. FCF Fighter, man.
I've had conversations with Joel Gold, the guy.
Whatever happened to Joel Gold, man?
Well, every time I want to get him on my show, but the guy, he's very, for lack of a better term, he's very elusive. I think he kind of just wants to focus on his business. But we've had interactions.
You know what? I think that I know for a fact there are a lot of people from those days that back then, like when you called it the Wild West, when it was the Wild West. There's a lot of people now that were back then kind of like the movers and shakers. And then when the Zuffa era came in, kind of got pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a lot of resentment from them because they did a lot of work. They built the sport, you know, from about, I would say from around 99 till about, well, whenever Zuffa came in, you know what I mean? You know, a lot of them, some of them went into management for fighters. Some of them were fine, you know, but a lot of them, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of guys that were mad about Zuffa coming in and just taking over the hard work that had been done by these other guys, right? It's kind of similar to what Vince McMahon did, I guess, you know, kind of took over everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's understandable. And it was just a crazy era because, you know, Tito was the champion and then Chuck Liddell was the guy that they wanted to build around. What was that like? Like, I mean, like, I'm sure like when you were there, like, was there always like, was there like some resentment that Chuck felt he should have been the guy, or was Chuck just kind of just doing what he did, build his repertoire, his resume, you know, fighting guys like Kevin Randleman, Murilo Bustamante, then
And to
Vitor.
be honest, Chuck was never there.
Really?
Chuck said, man, you can stay in my room. I'm going to go stay at my girlfriend's house. And I barely saw him. I barely trained with him. I just trained with Jason Von Flew and Tim Kennedy, and that's it. Chuck would show up to some of the practices, and that's it.
And Tim, what was Tim Kennedy like? Because Tim Kennedy, like,
he was awesome.
Yeah?
Him and I were the same weight, so we trained together. We got along really well. We trained all the time, and then after he just kind of fell off, and I guess that's when he got called. I guess that's when he got called into duty, because he just disappeared, and then he just reappeared later on a tournament called Extreme Challenge in 2003, and which he won, and I fought Jason Miller on that tournament.
Mayhem.
Yeah.
That's Mayhem is one of the interesting characters because his career never. It's like he could have been like something big, but just.
Man, he was good, that guy.
Yeah.
Like, that guy was good, man. I think he was his own worst enemy, you know?
Yeah, because I remember he fought George St. Pierre, because I always say, like, for me, the most important UFC events, obviously this is the first one. I would also have to say it's UFC 40, which was the Ken Shamrock Tito, the first Tito Ken fight, because that was, like, really, that got the fight mainstream. Then UFC 52, which was Liddell versus Randy Couture #2, because that
also Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonner.
Yeah,
obviously.
That's what I meant. Yeah, because like it was tough with that pay-per-view, so that helped blow up the sport. Middleweight division is on fire. But you know what? It's funny with middleweight, and I wanted to ask you about that because every time they always want to build something around middleweight, but it always seems like middleweight's about to take off, and then it kind of like plateaus for a bit and then it takes off again. Like, why do you think that is?
I've never noticed that. I don't know. It's I don't know.
Okay, because when you
honestly, I think they should add a 195 weight class, man. To be honest, I really do.
I think so. I'm for that. I think there needs to be that cruiserweight. There needs to be a cruiserweight, not 195.
And you know, like when I was fighting in Japan, the weight class was 182.
Whoa.
It was 84 kilos. Yeah. It was 182. And, you know, it was hard to make. And then when I got to UFC, I was a fairly sized, I used to be a pretty big middleweight, but now I'm a small middleweight. I would have to fight at 170 if I fought now. You know what I mean? Like just because I'm too short, you know?
It's just crazy what they look like today compared to then. And
oh my god,
but middleweight has some very interesting names because right when you were coming in, so this is what I mean by middleweight. So this is the story, because like I read some blog, and you know I'm not going to give the name of it because I don't really agree with them. It's their opinion. So this is the story. Middleweight, when Zuffa came in, they wanted to make Nate Marquardt the guy they would build around. Then Gil Castillo beat Nate Marquardt. I don't know how I remember the story. It was just like, it was crazy because of like how they dated back. Gil Castillo becomes like, okay, so he's kind of like, he's not the middleweight of the UFC.
Are you sure it wasn't Dave Manet?
Dave Manet was the first actual middleweight champion because they fought for the inaugural.
Yeah,
it was like they fought for the inaugural, and Dave Manet was there.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about Dave, because I know Nate pretty good because I trained with him quite a bit in Montreal, because George would bring him up for his camps all the time. So he would come up with his wife all the time. I know. So they're nice people. They're good people. Nate's a good guy.
He really is. And Dave Manet is the first ever middleweight champion. Then he lost it to Murillo. Man, Murillo that's another guy that people really don't give enough credit to, because
when he fought Matt Lindland, like he lateral dropped Matt Lindland. Like that's a high school move. That takedown, if you watch that fight, if you see the takedown where Murillo just drops and just flips over Matt Lindland, it's called a lat drop or lateral drop. That's a move that high schoolers do in wrestling. You don't take down an Olympian like that. Like fucking Matt Lindland's an Olympian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he was just so
good. He was the
real
real deal, Murillo, and so calm, very calm, very composed. Yeah.
Very stoic. Like he stood with Chuck. He's one of the few that never got knocked out by Chuck. So what should that tell you about him? Like, because Chuck was just murdering people with that Viking style.
Yeah. Just knocking people out and then doing.
No, the best celebration was when he fought versus Babalu at UFC 40, and because he wasn't supposed to take that fight, but he just took it, and he was also signed on this contract that said he'd be a backup fighter if either Ken or Tito got hurt. So imagine that. So he's like, you know what? He's like, give me a fight to just stay ready, and then fights Babalu, knocks him out, and he's just running around yelling he wants his belt, and everyone was like, yeah, this is the true number one contender. And do you really think Tito was scared of Chuck back then when you were coming up? Because that was the main thing. It's like, is Tito scared of Chuck? What was your thoughts of that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anybody really is ever really scared. He might have been worried. But I mean, it's I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't know how good of friends they were. There's also that side, right? They were saying that they were friends and that one of them felt betrayed that he had accepted to fight him. I don't know. That time I told you, when I was at Chuck's house, he took off for a week because I was there for like about a month. He took off for a week to go train in California, and he trained. And he said, "Yeah, I was just sparring with Kerr and Tito and those guys." And so they used to train together. So I know that. But I mean, who cares? Like, fight each other. I don't know. And then Tito probably was scared. You know what? Tito probably was worried because that was the one guy. And Tito is almost like what do you say? Like, not a rich kid, but like like a lonely child. He's got to have it. He wants to be the best. He didn't want to lose it. He really wanted to hang on to that belt. So I think he was a little worried, and that's why he kind of avoided Chuck. But he fought him in the end anyways, right? So
they did. Yeah, they fought one. They fought 3 times. We don't talk about the third time because that should never have happened. But the first fight was just on the verge of basically then UFC blowing up. But the second fight was really like that brought like almost like 1 million pay-per-views like on 2006. And I think that was a very important one. Now, when it comes to Tough blows up, you're fighting in Japan. What was your take on things going on? So you're like building your craft overseas. Was there thoughts of signing with the UFC when Tough exploded?
No, I was supposed to be on the first Tough. I was brought in along with Chris Lieben, Josh Koscheck, all those guys. We were brought in to try out for Tough. They wanted me. I was about to be on Tough. Me, Chris Lieben, Josh Koscheck, Sam Hoger, Bill Mahood, Jason McDonald, Nate Corey, who else? Whoever else was on there. We did the tryouts. They loved me. They wanted me to. They told me. I don't know if they said that to everybody else, but they told me they wanted me to they wanted me to be the face of the show. And I said, okay, but can I still fight in a tournament in Korea that I'm supposed to fight in? This was in August. I got to fight in a tournament in Korea for Spirit MC in September or October. And they're like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well, I got to do it. And then I made the decision. I go, I'm not going to do it. And then I remember I'm in the Zuffa office, and I tell the promoters out there, like, what do you mean, Dennis? We need you for the show. And I go, oh man, I was like really, really scared. The atmosphere started to get really tense. Let's see what Dana thinks about this. Let's get Dana in here. Dana storms in. I'm sitting down, and he's looming over me. And he's like, what's going on, Dennis? What's this I hear about you not wanting to come to the tough show? and I was like, God. Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I made this commitment to fight in Korea. Korea was my homeland. It was a big deal for me. I was choosing Korea over the Ultimate Fighter at the time. So they said, well, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. So instead, they chose Diego Sanchez, right? And Chris Lieben, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys were wild.
Sometimes I do want, and then eventually it doesn't matter because I won that tournament, and then I ended up going to Pride anyways and having a good run over there. Sometimes I do wonder what my life would have been like if I would have accepted the tough offer and stayed on tough. I could have, maybe I would have won it, but tough is hard, man. Tough is a gamble because you got that weight cut, you got injuries. It's just fucked, man. People go crazy on there. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
So when you went to Pride, it's interesting that you mentioned Pride because during this time, now this is when Pride used to be like the golden ticket for fighting. You know, you get good paydays, you go to Japan.
That was the biggest event. Pride was the biggest one. Yeah.
It was. And then this is what they did. They started competing now with the UFC because back then the UFC was like an afterthought. They thought, okay, it's in North America. We're Japan. We have Asia. What was it like when you were there? Like if you knew anyone like Ensign Inoue, maybe he had a role there. What made them want to go to the US and compete with the UFC? What do you remember about that?
What do you mean?
Because they went.
I don't think they wanted to compete with the UFC. I don't know. I mean, I don't speak Japanese. I didn't really. I don't know, man. I don't think they wanted to compete with the UFC. They just wanted to do their thing over there. The thing is, when they came over and did Pride Vegas, they brought their own everything. Like most companies would go somewhere and then hire local help, hire companies like a production company, a lighting company. You know, they brought all their staff. So it was extremely expensive for them. So that was a really, that was not a sustainable thing for them to go to the US, in my opinion. I think what happened over there is different. You know what the story is, why it folded, right?
Yeah, there's element of the Yakuza.
But it became public. That's what happened. So because it was public, the big sponsors like Gillette, like whatever, Nike, whatever big company could not be affiliated publicly with a Yakuza affiliated company. So they had to pull out their sponsorship monies, which in turn bankrupted the company, which in turn completely destroyed, unfortunately, the Japanese MMA scene. I mean, if you remember, the Japanese MMA scene back then was huge. You had Pride, you had Inoki Bumbaye, you had K1, you had Shuto, you had Pancrase, you had Zest, you had Deep. Remember? Like, if you fought, man, there were so many fights in Japan. There was fights every week, right? And now it's nothing. Zero.
Right? Yeah, it's like they've tried to bring it back, but it's like their own versions of it, but it's not the same. It's like people are like,
I don't know. No. I don't know what's going on, yeah. Even the fighter quality dropped off because of the lack of events. Nobody's got events to train for. You know what I mean? Hacho Hioki was the last good Japanese fighter that I remember. I think there's one more guy right now. He trains at American Top Team, but other than that, that's it.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean there. Now, so when you were so then Pride Folds, you go to, by the way, I hate to ask this, like, is it okay? It's getting dark on your side. Is it possible you could turn your little light on, or you have a light?
Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, there we go. That's perfect. Oh yeah, we see you perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
we
got
go.
this. It's okay. That's what I like about these shows when you do it when you don't have to be perfect, because everyone wants to do the perfect podcast. Like, people don't want perfection. There's enough of that in the world. You know what? Just be you.
That's
Just
right.
be raw. That's what makes it good. So 2000, the mid 2000, the early 2000s was like what I like to call the birth of the internet era. YouTube, social media,
Right.
smartphones, next gen gaming consoles. Like, do you remember?
Yep.
Like for me, like everyone talks about okay, I just want to say this. I understand everybody wants a PlayStation 5. I understand that, but you'll never understand two things: getting a PS2 and then getting a PS3. So
Yeah.
that's just, I don't know about if you would agree with that, but that era,
Or
those years,
Saturn, or GameCube, or what was the other one after the Saturn? There was,
Dreamcast.
yeah, Dreamcast. Like,
Yeah. Those were the days. Like, yeah, so those,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I meant. Cause like,
or
there's, like,
the little Sony. Remember the little Sony?
yes,
And Sony Nvidia. Was it called Nvidia?
PlayStation Portable, right?
There was like the little Sony handheld thing. It was. I had one. It was this big.
I
It was
had
pretty cool. It was all right. You could play Metal Gear Solid on it. It was all right.
That was one of my favorite games. That's like that's
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite game series. Like, it's such a I was happy they ended it, but it should have ended after number 4. Like,
Yeah, I wasn't into it that much. No, I just played it on that that little console. Yeah.
For me, I'm a very niche gamer too. Like, I'm an extremely niche gamer. Like, when people say I'm playing Call
I
of
don't
Duty,
game anymore, man. I used to be when I was younger. I used to be into RPGs and stuff, and first person FPS, but not anymore. I try. I wish I could. The games look amazing now, but I just can't now.
I'm the same way. Okay. So, what were your RPG games? For me, it's Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and Fire Emblem.
No, it was Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights. Yeah, so that was a bit later, maybe. Yeah,
maybe.
Phantasy Star for Nintendo was good. Yeah.
I know that. I know a Phantasy Star. Yeah, it's
yeah. That was old. Phantasy Star is really old. But Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, those are the ones that came out in the early 2000s. Those were more for PC. They came out later on. You can play them on your phones now. Like, they're so powerful, but back then you had to have a Pentium 90 to play them.
Good times. I'm the same way with the new games. They look so amazing, but then there's like all these add-ons and features. It's like, I just want to play the game. I don't want to do online. I don't want to sign up.
The games are free, but you got to pay all this extra shit just to have a fucking gun,
It's
just
so
to have
dumb.
a knife to stab the guy. Come on.
I know what you mean. So that era, just to take it back there, that's like when the launch of like the technology era. Like, everyone says the internet era was really in 2010. No, it was 2005. I feel when things started, when YouTube came out, that's when we have to know.
Yeah. So just so you know see how big it was in Japan. Like, they had Pride credit cards. Like, how credit cards have, like, there's the Visa symbol, and then there's like a little design, like a little red swoosh, or sometimes there's like a background, a lake or a mountain. They had Pride Visas. Like that. It was insane, man. Pride was huge. Yeah, man. Same with K1. K1 was huge as well.
Those openings were the best. Japan knows how to do fighter openings.
Amazing. Being back there, hearing the taiko drums just pounding and that music, and then because they had to do, if you remember, they would have to do a fighter presentation at the beginning of the card. So all the fighters had to be called out to the ring one by one. So we'd be standing backstage in a straight line, and the music is blaring. We're right behind the speakers, right backstage. And everybody's kind of jumping around, getting psyched up. Even though we're not fighting for like 3 hours. I look left, I look right. I see my opponent. I see other opponents. Man, it was really tense, but it was also, there was something also really special about it. Like, man, it was amazing. I feel very, very lucky to have been part of that era, because it'll never be back. We'll never have that again.
Never, no matter what.
No.
Like, one can always say, oh, one's trying to make it. It'll never be the same. Like, Pride is it's like it was a lightning in a bottle, and like they really, really built it around the fighter. Like, some of those entrances, like I love Vanderlei Silva's entrance. Like, that's iconic.
They built it around the fighters, and they built it around the pageantry and the showmanship of the event. So yeah, it's
crazy. So you come in, and like, it's like, I know you're okay with me asking this, because I said you fought one of the greatest middleweights, Gegard, the Dreamcatcher Mousasi. What was that like in 2008? Like, what was it like to face the man himself?
I mean, he was tough, he was tough, and I got caught. What can I say? I don't know. My training went really well for it. I trained in Vancouver for that fight at Revolution. Training really went well. I just happened to fall, literally. He's got long legs, fell into a triangle that closed right away. And I was caught, and that's what happened. There's nothing else I can tell you.
Any man who stood with him, the man himself.
Yeah, and I was doing pretty good up to the point. I felt good in the fight. I was doing good standing up, and then I took him down pretty easy. Yeah. So
that's impressive. And then, so after that, like, your 2007, 2008 is pretty good. Then you finally come to the UFC. What was that like? Did they call what was the process like of getting into the UFC? What happened with that?
Well, I'd won 2 fights by KO back to back. So then my manager, Dan Lambert, at the time from American Top Team, just said, "Hey, let's go with UFC." Actually, this was when Bellator was supposed to come. They were just starting. They're like, "Hey, there's another company named Bellator who wants you. They're offering you a 50 grand bonus if you sign with them right away." I'm like, "What the fuck is Bellator? What is a Bellator anyways? What does Bellator even mean?" And then I'm like, "I don't know, man. I think we should go with UFC." And then I go, "Okay, maybe we should go with the 50 grand bonus." And then the guy, it was Bjorn Rebney. And then Bjorn Rebney goes, "Oh, no, that was only yesterday. You had to sign yesterday. Now it's a 30 grand bonus." I said, "Go fuck yourself. We're going with UFC." So we went with UFC, and that's it, man. Like, it was, but by the time I got to UFC, I wasn't on American Top Team anymore. My training was a little different. I was a little older. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I had that same zip that I had, like that 1 year in Pride. I still train hard. My first fight was with Alan Belcher. The first day of training, I actually fractured my ankle. And I spent the whole training camp just rehabbing it. And then as soon as I could train, all I could do was boxing. So I did nothing but boxing for the fight with Alan Belcher. And then I kind of fought like an idiot. I was actually winning in the boxing department. And then I take him down, and I tired myself out taking him down, and he got me in a guillotine. Right?
That's crazy. And then you and then, like, it's like when you were in the UFC for a bit more, and that was when
I won my next fight. I won my next fight against Professor X, Xavier Fupapokam. And then as soon as they gave me the opportunity to fight Bisping, I took it, and I trained way too hard for it. I did 2 training camps because I was already training really hard. I took a training trip to Brazil that summer. If you remember, the Bisping fight was in October, and I went down to Brazil. It was supposed to be like a relaxing trip, but I ended up helping my friends train. So I just trained while I was in Brazil, came back to Montreal, took the Bisping fight, did another training camp. And then by the time the Bisping fight came, I usually walk around at 205. I was already 195. Like, I'd lost all this weight because I was just training way too much, So, I mean, it's not to take away from Bisping. He put on a good fight. He beat me fair and square, I take my loss like a man, But I'll tell you one thing. Everybody tells me, hey, you had him in the first round. You dropped him. Yeah, I dropped him. But halfway through the first round, I was dead tired already. That's what real overtraining will do to you. You have zero energy stored in your cells. Zero kind of, I was just dead. That's it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. That's just crazy. But look, at the end of the day, you look at like you got to do what only like 0.5% ever say they do, because everybody is romanticized by wanting to fight, but then few have like the will to do it. And it's just to like quote like just to quote karate Kyokushin Shian that I know, like he gets students that come to him because he's sought after for like the kumites, and they say, hey, I want to be a karate champion. And then he's like, okay, do you have all of these resources, like the time and the money to like invest into it? And then the next day, they're like, I don't really. And that's the thing. So he knows.
You know what? I train fighters now, and I get so many people who come to me and tell me that they want to fight, and it's the same thing. They'll barely show up, or they'll disappear, or it's the same thing. I think competing is a very romantic notion. It's a very appealing one, and talking about it is great, and it makes you feel good. But actually doing it and putting in the time and effort and going through the trials and tribulations that it takes to get to that level, it's only a very select few, man. The 1%ers,
It's so true. It's very true. And what is it like? So after like UFC, you did a few more fights, and after that you just said, okay, you know what?
Yeah. No, I was done. Yeah. Like my last fight was with Melvin Manoff, and I barely trained for that. I took that fight because I needed the money at the time, fair and square. I was kind of burnt out. I had a lot of injuries. My hip was bothering me. I ended up getting a full hip replacement later on. I just, plain and simple, I took that fight because I needed money at the time, and they were paying well, and it was New Year's Eve, and that's it.
That's crazy. And then, so then when you retired, what was it? What was like the early stages like? So now that before becoming a trainer, you said, you got like somewhat of a regular job, and then what made you say, okay?
It sucked, man. It sucked. I kind of, because I was a little bit burnt out, but I needed a break. But I thought that I was burnt out, or people around me also were telling me that I needed to stop MMA. I trained enough. I've been doing it for so long, so somehow it crept into my head that I did not need to train, and that I should do something else completely away from MMA, from MMA. And not be involved, when really it was the opposite. I needed a break from training, but then I needed to get back to training, but just for fun. And now I train every day. The training was my therapy. This is what I need to live. This is what I do, man. I can't imagine my life without training. That period of my life that I just spoke about, where it was in between my retirement and getting back to training, was a horrible period, which I won't get into. My hip was really bad. I was walking basically on one leg. I was almost in a wheelchair until I got the hip replacement. And then there was a period of recovery. And then I slowly started to get back into training. And now I'm here. I'm in good shape. I train all the time. I'm making fighters. I'm training fighters. I train regular people as well. I help people get in shape. I love it. I change people's lives, literally.
Can't be more rewarding than that. And the best part is, it doesn't, even if you fought, whether you fought 1 time, 3 times, or 5 times in the UFC, that gives credibility to your name. Because it's easy to say, oh, he fought in MMA. Well, he fought in Bellator. Everyone's like, people be like, okay. But if you say he fought in the UFC. Oh, he fought in UFC. Okay, you know what? I want to train with him. So then it's like you really did well for yourself. Like, Thank you, man. No one can ever take that away from you. And it's like, because everybody's an armchair coach or fighter.
Yeah.
And I see it so much now. Like, and then like when I see people,
absolutely,
it's ridiculous. Like,
everybody has and especially now with the internet, a lot of people will read articles and then just repeat what they read. and act like it's their own opinion, you know? You're just repeating what you read on a forum, you douchebag, you know?
It's so
You don't
true.
even know what you're saying.
I couldn't. I had to ask this, but apparently there's Sandro has an inside joke with you, so I don't know what the joke is, but
What is it?
I don't remember. I have to check my phone. I forgot. Sandro, you're gonna hate me for this. I should have asked you. Fuck. I'm sorry.
Is it the time I walked in on him and he was sniffing my underwear? It was weird. Yeah, I don't know why he was doing that. It was a little awkward. Yeah. It might be that. Oh, did I just put it out there? Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm sorry, Sandro. It was between you. I don't know what the joke is, what the inside joke is.
But I mean, like,
Sandro and I used to go to war against each other, just sparring, brawling, man, hard. He was one of my best, hardest sparring partner. Sandro was tough. If he would have competed, he would have gone very far.
Yeah,
this guy was good, man. He's a good coach now.
He really is, and it's like it's nice to see what he's doing too. But it's just unfortunate with what's going on in Montreal because, like, look, everybody has their thoughts on it, but I mean, it just sucks that
Oh man, and did you hear the last of it with Faraz and the police coming to TriStar?
I'm very disgusted by it.
That is horrible. And RD International was always there. They were always underneath. That's a modeling agency. They're right down at the bottom of the I don't know. You've been in TriStar, right?
I visited once. Yeah,
They're
I've been
at
there
the bottom
once.
of the stairs. If you go down the stairs, you go to RD. Or they're on the second floor. I can't remember. TriStar's on the top floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways.
It's
what a bunch of punks, man. Like TriStar said, like Faraz said, they just want their parking spots.
It's so stupid. And it just sucks because, guys like Sandro and Faraz and the other coaches, Rob and like I don't know about Jeremy Rubin. I think Jeremy is more.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there. Everyone's still there. But the coaches, they can't make a living, and it really, it bothers me because now like what they're saying with Faraz said, it's happened to other gyms, and
of course,
and like
it's happened here too.
No way. Get out. I thought Vancouver, like it's they're somewhat normal.
No. It hasn't happened to that degree, but there has been. What's happened is some people in gyms have called the city and basically ratted out other members on not wearing masks or not doing this and that. That's basically what's happening. It's not that bad though.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least you guys can train at least somewhat. Like us in Quebec, look, as you mentioned, I'm not political. I don't really want to get involved with it because everyone has an opinion. But I just wish there could be a median where everyone could just come to an agreement, could reopen, there could be half capacity or not.
Listen. They keep on putting out all these masks, all these new restrictions, all these new closures, all these vaccines. The cases are still going up. So obviously it's not working. Just let life be life. People are going to get sick. People are going to get the flu. People are going to get COVID. It's what happens,
It's unfortunate, but yeah, and I get it, but like the thing is, like British Columbia, everything is spread out. That's why it's not as bad, or like say in Alberta. I mean, I don't know.
True.
I don't know. I mean, the news portrays one thing, but I don't hear much about BC in the news. Probably
we're pretty lucky. I think we're one of the best. You know what? There's a part of BC which is called Vancouver Island. They've had almost 0 cases. They've had, I think, like 10 cases.
Whoa.
Only. That's where Victoria is, the capital of Vancouver. Yeah, of the capital of BC, I mean. Yeah, but Vancouver itself, we have a lot of cases. Just like anywhere else, we're just not as bad as like out east. Ontario and Quebec, you guys are taking a beating, man. I feel bad. I feel really bad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Plus the weather. Is it still snowing over there?
No, now it's like warm. Now it's like getting warmer. We might wait. You know what? Let me check. I saw a forecast. I'm just checking. I saw a forecast, so I can't believe I'm saying this because I do believe we're getting snow next week, and it's going to be on Wednesday and Thursday. But it's going to be the snow that melts.
Really? Because it was like today. I think it was 21 degrees today here, man. Like it's warm. Right? Yeah. I'll tell you right now. Today, today was 21. So, so it's warm, man. It's hot out here.
It is hot out here. Hey, let me ask you this, because last night Ben Askren fought Jake Paul. What's your thoughts on these YouTube
Oh,
boxers?
it was a joke. That was a joke, that event. That was an embarrassment. I mean, you had Snoop Dogg, Oscar De La Hoya just being a bunch of clowns. It looked like Ben Askren took a dive. It didn't even look like he trained. And then the referee stopped it prematurely. Like, it was just ridiculous. Why choose Ben Askren? Why did Dana even let this happen? Like, put a striker in. Why Ben Askren?
I know.
Of all people, why put Ben Askren? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's almost like they wanted somebody to lose so that they want to send somebody to make a comeback. I don't know. Why Ben Askren? There's no way they would think Ben Askren would knock somebody. And especially the Paul brothers, they're legit tough guys. They're big athletes. They're big tough guys. And he's training boxing. It's not that hard to learn how to box and spar and fight an amateur fight. Like,
Right.
Boxing's real simple. It's not MMA. There's not all this stuff to learn. Put Paul in a fucking MMA match. Then we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it. It pissed me off a little.
A lot of people are pissed.
Yeah, I switched back to the UFC, to the Robert Whittaker fight, who put on a clinic, by the way, who was awesome. And I got to give a shout out to my girl, Lupita Gutierrez, who fought Jennifer Penne, who lost a decision, but I thought she did really well. It was her first fight in UFC. She's from right here in Vancouver. She trained real hard. I've seen her come up from the bottom. She's awesome. I thought she almost won. I thought she kind of did one, man. And the decision could have gone her way, but hey, it didn't. She'll be back in UFC. Anyways, that's it, man.
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, Robert Whittaker put a clinic on. What are your thoughts on him with the middleweight picture now? What are your thoughts of a rematch with him and Izzy? Do you think that Robert takes the rematch?
Here's the thing. I trained with Robert Whittaker. He came to Montreal for a bit to TriStar. And he was a 170 at that time. He's not a big middleweight. And Izzy's biggest advantage is his size. Izzy is a modern-day Anderson Silva. Anderson's biggest advantage was his size and his distance and his reach control. And Izzy is basically like a newer version of Anderson Silva, right? I don't think. He could take the fight. You never know. All it takes is one punch. If he does take the fight, I hope he takes him down. He doesn't try to stand with him. Mm-hmm. We have to put Izzy on his back in the middle of the octagon. Too many people are trying to take people down against the cage, and then that's how people are getting up. You got to take him down in the middle of the cage, in my opinion. Right?
Very true. I totally agree. And he just looked sensational. I like to call Robert Aussie GSP. Same style, traditional martial arts, great grappling.
Very safe.
And he's just, I like Izzy, don't get me wrong. I like middleweight division for what's there now. Like, I really feel since Yoel Romero left, I feel it's like just opened up tenfold. So much.
Yeah.
So much. Do you still follow middleweight division a lot in the UFC, or do you...
I follow the whole UFC, man. You kidding me? I never missed a card.
That's amazing.
This is my life. I'm in the gym all day, every day, bro. This is all I do. Is all I do. This, and I read comics and I watch TV shows, and that's it.
Marvel or DC?
Both. Whatever's good.
Don't worry, I'm not shaming you. I'm not shaming you. I don't do that.
There's other companies.
Image,
Marvel and DC.
Do you remember Dreamwave?
Huh?
Do you remember Dreamwave, like the Transformer comics?
No.
Okay, I was like in 2002. So when I was 10 years old, when I started getting into comics, Dreamwave was a Vancouver company where they made like the first generation of Transformers. And then they made like some other comics, but they were only in business for about like maybe 3 years. But they were Canadian.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
And they made some dope comics. Like I used to always go to like Captain Quebec, a comic store, just to try to get the new
I know
releases.
Captain Quebec on St. Catherine.
Yeah,
I used to go there. I love that store, man. I love that store.
it's
I used
still
to go there
there.
all the time and buy stuff. Right across from Kazu.
Yes, and not
You
only
know
that,
Kazu?
Kazu
The
was
Japanese restaurant?
yes,
The best, probably one of the best restaurants in Canada. Amazing. Huge lineups.
they're still there. They're still
They're
there.
still, of course. Kazu's amazing.
It's and then for when I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if you're a manga kind of guy for Japanese comics, but
A little bit. For the older stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when Captain Quebec, so here's the funny thing. So before, like when Chapters and Indigo used to start getting the manga in, Captain Quebec used to get all of it in, like right before the main stores got them. And that's like the one reason why I used to love going there. But the only thing I hated was they put everything in like a plastic, like, and you could, and I'm like, hi, can I read the book? No, you have to buy it. It's like,
So that's why you go to Chapters, which is just down the street anyways on St. Cat's, right?
No, they closed it. They closed it
Right
down.
by the Scotia Theaters.
Yeah, it used to be there. Then it became Victoria's Secret, and now they're closing down the Victoria's Secret.
Oh my God, it's the death of the brick and mortar store. I'm telling you, the world is changing, man.
COVID.
Hey, all my comics now are on my iPad. I order them on Amazon. I mean, I buy them, I pay for it, but I don't have any paper comics. I just download them.
The paper comics I have are like I have 8 graphic novels. I have 4 Wolverine, like the ones that are like that Origins, Weapon X, and Wolverine actually, so 3. And then Punisher, they remade the Punisher like much more graphic. So I got all 4 of the graphic novels.
Yeah, the Marvel X, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Really good. I have it too.
It's so good. That's my
really
favorite
good.
superhero.
It was by Garth Ennis, right? Yeah.
Yes, Garth made it, and it starts with like the beginning of how Frank was in Vietnam, and then how
I remember. I remember. Yeah.
Great comic series. Like I loved everything. You know, Dennis, I want to say I have to thank you for coming on and making this happen, because to get you on, it was such a big honor to have you. So
it was my pleasure, my friend. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, man, if you want to come on again, hopefully with Sandro next time, you know, we could make that happen.
Anytime, would love to. We shoot the shit.
And exactly.
We can talk about that underwear smelling incident when I caught him. You know, we'll see what he's got to say about that.
He's gonna have to come clean on that, but I love him, man. Yeah. Sandro was one of the original guests that came on my show. I love
Sandro. Sandro's an OG, man. Yeah. As tough as they come, as honorable as they come.
Exactly. Like when I first started the show, like a lot of people didn't, not this show, but I used to have another show before this that was only on audio. But then this is the one that's on video and audio. And Sandro was like one of the first that like came on like for the big names. That when I started like trying to become bigger, and you just need that one, and then when you get that one, it starts taking off, and then
right.
So that's why. So Dennis, where can people connect with you if they ever want to, like, say, get a seminar in or train, no matter what, because we live in the internet age?
I mean, you can get at me on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Do I even know my own Instagram handle? Hold on a second. What is it? I think I'm just. This is Denis Kang. This is Denis Kang on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Twitter is just Denis Kang. I'm also on TikTok. I make TikTok videos, and it's just Denis Kang MMA.
Nice. Anything, man, to get you going. Well, Dennis, as mentioned, so guys, make sure when you watch and listen to the show, like, subscribe, share, follow Dennis, because
I put a lot of techniques. I try to put on BJJ, MMA, and boxing techniques on my Instagram, especially.
Nice.
So if you want to learn, come try and check out my Instagram page. Give me a shout out, follow, say something, say hi, say what's up, start a conversation. I'll talk with you. I'll chat with you, man. Seriously, anybody. Just come say what's up.
Perfect. Well, Dennis, as mentioned, I'll let you know when the episode's on and before it's up, and that way we can make sure that it gets the popularity it deserves.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Thank you.